I want to talk quickly about possible remedies. And I want to do this because I want you to understand the Constitution's electronic election solutions. Tomorrow on the show, we have one of the nation's premier experts on election law in the country, Hans von Spakovsky, joining us, talking about the Constitution's election solutions. But I want you to understand, and again, I want you to be as involved as you can be. But here's the story on this. There is litigation being filed in federal courts around this country. Litigation challenging violations of state law where the election officials let people send in late mail-in ballots. They let ballots be counted that were not correctly filled out, that didn't have the signature and address of the supposed witness, which is a huge thing. And by the way, I think I said it earlier, but the mail-in ballot thing, I know that the left is endlessly capable of coming up with reasons you should feel sympathetic for the people who use the ballots and mock and ridicule someone who is raising concerns about them. You always hear, the leftists saying, the Democrats saying, the Republicans, now they're picking at the poor folks in the senior home. You know, they still want to vote, these precious Americans. They try to vote, and the Democrats and the Republicans are attacking them. No. The way mail-in ballot fraud is so obvious that even the New York Times had to admit it's a playground for fraud is because if you do things like happen in swing states where you're counting votes on election night and you're realizing you can see who's winning, if you have an uncontrolled, lawless use of mail-in ballots, the election officials who are looking at the tallies from the early vote and the day of voting and realizing, wow, our guy's losing, we don't like this, they have a lot of time in there to gin up, to create, concoct mail-in ballots to overcome the vote differential, to push their guy over the edge when they can see the voters were actually going the other way. This is as old as time, it's not confusing, and everyone who's ever been involved in elections realizes this is why mail-in ballots are subject to such fraud. So where we are on possible remedies, lawsuits on the state level, lawsuits in federal courts. These will all get fast-tracked. They'll all get fast-tracked. We're not, they're not going to dawdle in courts for 2 years. Everyone understands the consequences. The Electoral College, and I know I said this last week, I'll say it again, the Electoral College is the only entity on the planet Earth that has the authority to say who the next president will be. Not Fox News, not CNN, not Washington Post, not New York Times, the Electoral College. The Electoral College meets on December 14th. That is a statutorily provided date. It's like whatever it is, I can't remember the exact formulation, first Friday after the second Wednesday or something like that. Point is it's dictated by statute. This year it's either the 12th or the 14th. Till the Electoral College has met, no one's been chosen as the next president. And at the Electoral College, a candidate must have 270 electoral votes. If you don't have 270, you don't win the Electoral College, and then the election moves over to Congress. And that's what we're going to talk in depth tomorrow with Hans von Spakovsky about. But I want to make a few points about where we are in this right now. We have the lawsuits pending. They may affect the outcome. You may have, as you had Justice Alito tell those two states, you have to segregate the ballots that came in too late under your state law from those that might be legitimate. So you have those and other kinds of orders. You also have states that have the authority, and this gets a little bit dicey, but it's possible for it to occur. The Electoral College is comprised of 2 people from every state and some others, but let's stick with that for now. And the Electoral College, the 2 people who are the electors from each state are put there and under the control of the legislature in their state. So if you're a Republican majority, say in Pennsylvania, you're the Republican majority, you're the legislature, you know that the real vote count was Trump, and yet you have all these election officials playing with numbers trying to convince you that Biden really won. There appears to be authority for the legislators themselves to direct the electors to vote for the legitimate winner of that state's election, to vote for the legitimate winner, not the winner that the left and Fox and MSNBC and CNN are trying to say is the winner. But there's some power in the legislators to direct the electors. next issue is all the ways we go forward. There's so many paths it could go on, but if the Supreme Court were to hear cases out of several of the swing states and conclude that the election was fraudulent and that there's no potential remedy available for the state to actually figure out who really won the election in that state based on honest votes, based on actual votes cast early on the day, or legal mail-in ballots, if the state has no capacity to do that, they have no capacity to say who won their state. And if the Supreme Court were to rule so many elections in the swing states were fraudulently conducted, or if they conclude that the evidence is overwhelming after shown to a trial court that there was a 3% flipping of early votes from Trump to Biden, so that many elections in many states were fraudulently conducted, or that the count is fraudulent, the Supreme Court can invalidate, just say this cannot stand as the election from your state. You can't just cheat and get your way. You can't cheat your way into the White House. And so the Supreme Court could say, we are ruling invalid the elections in these states. Now, people, I'm out here speculating. These are potentials, though, that many serious constitutional attorneys are talking about. But the Supreme Court could just invalidate the election in a series of swing states because they cheated, because of 3% flipping, because they counted mail-in ballots, for whatever reasons they have. And then nobody, neither of the two candidates, would get to 270 in the Electoral College. And in that case, the Constitution's remedy in the Constitution, and further spelled out in the 12th Amendment to the Constitution, is the idea that the election then goes to the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate. The U.S. House picks the president, the U.S. Senate picks the vice president. But it's not one representative, one vote. It is done by state delegation. So if you have in the House, as we have now, 26 delegations from a Republican majority states, and those 26 stick with Trump, the House picks Trump. And the 24, the other states don't have the majority. And so it literally could come down to this. It's come down to it 2 other times in America's history where the Electoral College could not get to a conclusion, couldn't get to 270, so it went to the House. But it's not every member of the House. It doesn't matter that the Democrats have the majority of representatives in the House. It matters state delegations, state by state by state. So 26 Republican delegations, 24 Democrat delegations. Assuming the Republicans stick with the party, you get Trump out of that, go over the Senate side, and this is where, and the Senate side picks the vice president, same kind of idea. And another thing is interesting to understand about all this. So the president, as most of you know, the president is elected and sworn in January 21st, 21st, or 21st, I think it is. So the president's sworn in, I guess 20th. President sworn in the 20th. But the members of the House and Senate are sworn in on January 3rd. And this election inside the House, inside the Senate, happens after the newly seated House and Senate, after the Senate and House are seated as a result of the elections in the various states. So a lot of places to go. We'll talk with Hans von Spakovsky more about this, but there are a lot of avenues where this could go, and this is why I'm going back to my point about in the beginning about the importance of people being activists. If you have jelly-spined Republicans who are more fearful about riots in the streets unless Biden gets his way, if you have Republicans who, whatever reason they have, may not stand with the party, we need to have the elected Republicans in the House and Senate so aware that their Republican voting base will take them out if they do not stand with the duly elected President, Donald Trump. They need to see the people in the streets. They need to be hearing from you, the members of the House and the Senate, hearing from you. You want to see Donald Trump as president. If we get to this point, the energy in the public, the energy at all of these states where the recounts are happening, where protesters are outside standing up for the president. You do realize, of course, that all these rallies around the country, there's never, ever been an organic, we love our guy rally for Biden. Ever. I truly can't think of one time. The support for Trump is not personal to him, although people, his voters love him. But the support for him is because of what he brought to this country, how he changed things, how he fixed America, the great things that he did in this country.